So let's take a look at this for just a second. This is the newest calculator. I'm going to plug some numbers in here because we got to have something in here. And I'm just going to use one because that will drop down and give us what we need down here. So when you're looking at the wholesale side of it, you have to turn around and find that true ARV. Using the big four is fine, but you may want to also look at getting a manual one. Okay, but this one will only work using the big four. Okay, so once the big four is put in here, we're going to use an ARV of $230,000. Then you got to come up with some type of repair. So can somebody give me the formula that the typical guru teaches for wholesaling?
70% of the ARV minus repairs and percent.
Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what it is. This calculator just digs a little bit deeper. Okay, so let's figure out repairs. Let's say we have a 1,500 square foot house, and let's say it needs $15,000 worth of repairs. Let's go a little deeper because let's say it's a really junker. So it needs $30,000 worth of repairs. Okay, that's probably a wholesale deal and probably not a novation. Yes.
Why are you putting that in as the dollar per square foot?
Put it in because usually what happens is when you're looking at different houses, you'll add dollar per square foot for rehab. And then this is your actual rehab number so you can see it if it's 30,000. So some people do it as a square footage, and some gurus will even put it out there that your standard lipsticks $10 square foot. Okay.
So that dollar per square footage is not the assessed value, the ARV of the property. It is the repair value of what you think it's going to be per square feet for the total.
Correct.
Didn't get that.
Correct.
Okay.
It's strictly about repair right there. Okay. Has nothing to do with the value of the house. Okay. So we're saying this house needs $30,000 worth of repairs. Okay. So with that, the way this is set up, we already put in here 50%, 60%, 70%. Anthony, you just told me that 70% of ARV. Okay. So 70% of ARV. So this number here is going to be 70% of ARV minus $30,000 is what this number is right here. Okay. If you're going to buy it at 60 or if you're going to buy it at 50%. Okay. So this is where you have to know the markets. If you're in Ohio, you're going to want to be down around that 50, 60 mark. If you're going to be in Arizona, or if you're going to be like a Dallas or something like that, you could be 70, and you might even hit up into 80, depending on what the market's doing. Now the interest rates have dropped a little bit. Things are going to start happening within the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. So the values might come up a little bit. Okay, but this is a number you can play with in the calculator. You can change that number for yourself, okay? So if we look at this, the other number we have to look at is what is the flipper going to make, okay? That's super important. This number here is basically what he's gonna make if we sell him this property at this number here. So basically, if we sell him 50% of ARV, okay, because that's exactly 50%, minus repairs. And if he sells it at ARV, this is what he's going to make minus his realtor fees and closing costs. Okay, we've already calculated into this number his repair costs and his reselling it cost, which is going to be the realtor and closing costs. Okay, does that make sense? What I didn't calculate in here is his holding costs. Because some flippers finance their own shit. Some flippers go out and get hard money. So that's a number that they are going to have to put in there. But what I'm trying to do is, if you are a true good wholesaler, you are looking at the end buyer, which is your flipper, which is your customer. Can your customer make money? Okay? So here's where you can play with the number. At 70%, we lose money. At 60%, we're only making $7,000. Right now, this is not a deal if we're going to buy it at this numbers and sell it to him at this. So we can take this number and play with it a little bit, and let's move it up to 60. And now it changes all the numbers. His number just dropped to 43,000. Now we're making $7,000. These numbers here, you got to remember, already have this number equated into our numbers and into his numbers, and it has this cost for him also. So $40,000 on a $200,000 or $200,000 flip, not bad. Okay, most people would actually go into maybe $20,000. Okay, so we can change this number again. Now he's making $20,000. We're making $30,000 at a 70%. Okay, how easy is that to look at, and how fast is that to calculate fast numbers to see if it's a deal for your flipper? Maybe you don't. Maybe we want him to have a little bit more meat in the game. So maybe we're going to go 65%. Now he's going to be at 32, and we're still at 18 if we buy it at this number. So for our own calculations, we know that if we buy it at 60%, so if we can buy this sucker at $108,000, that's a deal. Dispo should be able to sell that sucker all freaking day long. Everybody agree? Easy calculations, fast calculations. We couldn't do that before. Run the numbers through the calculator. The first thing we're going to look at, is it a takedown? The calculator is going to tell you if it is or not. And it gives you 3 different ways of doing it. Okay, sub 2, hybrid, seller finance. Okay, so how are you going to take it down? No, it's not a takedown. Great, let's move on to novation. You run it through the novation calculator. We have our garbage fees in here. Right now there's $6,000 worth of garbage fees plus whatever concession, 3% of concessions or whatever that comes out at. Okay, so we can take this same deal. I didn't run it through here, but we can take the same deal and we're looking, we know that ARV is 230. So if ARV is 230, Kirsten, what would we sell that for?
I'm selling it for, I'm listing it at 185.
Okay, so 185. So we go up here. So now we need to buy it at maybe 150. We can plug in. I'm just playing with numbers. That gives us a $12,000 profit. Not good enough. Okay, where should we be with that number?
130.
Whoops, what did I just do?
110.
Okay, there's a $32,000 deal. Okay, so very quickly, you just ran that number, and you've got $11,000 in realtor's fees. You've got $5,500 in concessions. Do we always use concessions? Not always. We might use some of them, okay, for our closing side and so forth, but typically we're not going to use $5,000 of it. And I've got $6,000 worth of garbage fees, okay? And we're at 32. Let's just use the 6,000, so that just took us up to a $38,000 deal. Okay, I like that. But now let's take it on down, and to make that same kind of money, now we got to offer them here somewhere probably around what, 115-ish, 112-ish. But up here we can offer them 130. Which is the seller typically going to take?
130.
Okay, it's all right there in front of you. Okay, $30,000 rehab, I can already tell you right now it's not a takedown because too much work for me. Okay, so you've already pivoted onto novation just with the questions you've asked that seller. You didn't even have to use this part of the calculator.
So takedown's really kind of without having to do anything to really kind of repair.
A takedown
proper. Massive amounts of repair, it sounds like.
Takedown property is a pretty property. Has to be move-in ready, and I mean rent ready. Okay. Maybe not something we would live in, but rent ready. They have to be able to move in and actually start living there. Okay? Pretty houses. Okay? $30,000 worth of repair is not a pretty house. Okay? It's going to need way too much work. Okay? So you already know in your talking with the sellers that you're already on to a novation, and it may not even be a novation. It may need too much work for even a novation. Okay, and this is where you have to really kind of drill down. You will find houses out there that people want to do and fix up. You know, so it might be, okay? But that's where I would say that's pretty much right on the cusp. You wouldn't want any more than that.
Well,
Okay.
it's like that Deborah Back lady, that her house is, it's livable, it's just completely outdated, it's all 70s, 80s, so it needs a full rehab. It needs a full remodel.
Needs it, but is it livable?
It's livable.
Fine.
But
So then you really don't count that, because I look at a rehab scenario that it needs cabinets because the cabinets are falling off the wall. The carpet is torn up. The walls have holes in them. That's a different type of rehab than just making it more modern. Okay, you don't have to have a modern house to live in it. A lot of people don't live in a modern house.
Okay, so even if it's a 70s, 80s era type interior, but it's still clean, pristine,
livable.
doesn't necessarily need upgrades, it's still, okay, it could still be a takedown at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So what is this real rehab? You got to be careful. So I look at rehab that it needs a lot of help. Doesn't just need updated, it needs a lot more help than that.
Okay.
Okay, so you got to analyze that. Okay. So this is just an example, but what I wanted to show you, and I definitely want Justin and Anthony to be using this calculator on every single deal you're doing and putting it into FreedomSoft, so that if I hear you in talking to Jason, whatever, I can pop in and say, what address is this? I can pull it up on my computer and I can be looking at the same thing you guys are looking at. Okay? Because this is giving you really fast, quick numbers. Okay? And I think that now that we have this dialed in a little better, and I'm understanding it in my head better, okay, after putting that extra stuff on there, because now we're really looking at, this flipper could make $32,000 if we sell it to them at this price here. So that's our exit price to them. So that's what Dispo will sell it to them for. He has to put it back together and sell it for this, minus his selling cost, not his holding cost. If he's got holding costs, then he needs to equate that in there. So if he has holding costs of $10,000, he's still going to make $22,000.